right, so Mike is going to fix my mistakes that y'all have already seen on the channel. We've took the anti-roll bar out of the car because originally, you know, I drilled this hole. This is your easiest hole for the most part, but one thing that is a little tricky that I can tell you from my point of view that you might can relate to, the smarter people probably are gonna not relate to it, but basically when you get this kit in the mail and they want you to drill a hole, so it's easy, you just lay this down and then you just drill your first hole. Where people like me struggle, or I'm learning more and more every week, is that if your drill bit, when you drill through here, you know, if it's like this or whatever, this is my problem, is normally I'm like this, you know, that's extreme, or normally I'm like this, and then the holes end up not being centered on the, you know, the tube right here, how this is centered. Normally it don't go straight through, so if you're leaned a little this way, then you end up riding the side of that. Now my first hole went pretty good. I didn't really have no issues. It fits decently tight on each side, but that's what happened over here to this hole. So on this side, when I drilled it, let's see here. Oh, I don't even know where my first freaking hole was. That's how bad it was. But I put my hole in there of what I thought was centered, and then when it come through the other side, what it ended up being is too far off of this side or too far to this side. So whenever you went to put it through here, this is machined to go perfectly center through there, perfectly center through here, and that's where I struggled. So I'm not going to show y'all how to do this or go over anything. Mike's going to, so you can go over to Blanton Dynamics YouTube channel, and basically what he's going to do is, number one, we have to cut this shorter because the change we made in the cars, but he's going to get these holes where they're centered straight through, and then he's also going to add a sleeve to this for strength to improve this kit. So make sure you go to Blanton Dynamics. He'll eventually have that video up and show you how to make sure you don't make the mistakes like I did, because I really jacked that up really, really bad. I mean, the bolt, when you put it in there, that's just not going to work because the bolt's literally just sitting there flopping around like that. So then your anti-roll bars, like one would be solid and then the other one had a bunch of play into it. So it just was bad. So Mike's going to fix that. Yeah. All right, so we got our clamps in for our roll bars now. The only thing I'm not super stoked about these is the weight. So I'm not happy about the weight at all, but both of these situations, I think they need to be super strong and not really lightweight. So we're using these for the travel limiters. Not stoked about them being 3 bolts. They only need to be 2 bolts. I thought about going and cutting them, you know, and then technically I would have one left over of the, you know, singles. If I mark it and cut it, that would give me a single to mount other stuff on. So I'll probably do that. I'll probably, you know, make it equal on this side and try to just cut this thing with a cutoff wheel to cut this down to a 2 and give me some extra clamps or if I ever need them. But that's going to go, I mean, these things, I'm super not happy about the weight, but I knew they were heavy when I ordered them. These are going to clamp on the bar right here. So they'll be clamped to this top bar. And then what we'll do is we'll weld our tabs for our travel limiters. I have a mess up here, as you can see. So we'll take these, cut these down, change them, and we will weld these basically something like that, where they get welded to this clamp so that this all clamps onto your tube. Now, obviously, I have to grind the paint off from these mistakes right here. As you can see, we have to grind all that out. So I'm grinding the paint off, and some of y'all might be like, well, you should just have welded the travel limiter bracket to the frame of the car. And, you know, yeah, maybe I should. But like I've said in other videos, I'm not a big fan of permanent fixtures because I like to change stuff and modify so much stuff that I love being able to unbolt them and then, you know, basically work on the bench and change it, build brackets, whatever you want to change. So that's what we're going to be working on. We're going to get these travel limiters put in. The other clamps that I bought, this was the seat clamp that I had for the back of the seat, and then what we had done is took this aluminum to cut weight and we had bolted it to here basically like this. So this went around your roll bar, and then this was of course adjustable, and then your seat back bolted into that. The issue here is that the seat kind of is wobbly. This don't really have a ton of bend to it right here, a ton of flex, but the whole back of the seat just kind of does like that. So after a few recent accidents that we have all seen on YouTube of different race cars, I have decided that we are going to cut these off probably, and we are going to change this to where we actually have two of these basically like this. Okay, two of them mounted through the roll bar, and then off of here we'll bring rods that will have another flat plate, you know, basically like this. Okay, so a flat plate, but the difference is that there would be two mounting points on each end that go to each clamp, so the back of the seat literally has no play at all, so it's way sturdier. So I'm putting a little bit more weight back in the center of the car. Again, like I said, I'm not happy about that. The back of this seat clamp, honestly, I could have probably ordered aluminum clamps. I'm still thinking about it. I have some clamps down here in the drawer. I don't know if they're the right size I need. They probably are, but I'm really considering not putting this weight on there and using all aluminum. The only problem with that is doing this. I can fab this stuff in my house being steel because I can weld it myself, or at least tack it, take it to the shop. Anything that I do with aluminum, Mike has to do at the shop, so I can't even tack it at the house. I have to either put it together with painter's tape, or, you know, mark it and take it to the top shop, have Mike tack it, and then bring it back home, put it in the car, make sure it fits right, and take it back to the shop, have Mike burn it in, come back, put it in the car, and finalize everything. So because I never taught myself how to weld aluminum, if I could go back and redo it, I would be redoing it. So the plate, I would be redoing that, and I would buy a TIG and teach myself to weld. That's what I mean. So the place I got these clamps from, if anybody's wondering, you can just basically search on eBay for raw steel tube clamp, and that's probably going to get you a lot of results. I searched by the size. A lot of the size, you can do like 1.75 for the 1 3/4, but the 1 5/8 you got to do like 1.6 something. Let's see here, it don't even say on here. 1.625. That will get you the most common results. So this is who we bought it from. They actually shipped super fast out of California. That is their name on eBay and how you can find them on eBay. And then that is what we paid for a total of 4 clamps. You can see the different ones right there, $35.99 and $34.99 for 2. Each line is 2. So 2 of them for $35.99 and 2 of them for $34.99. So not bad at all. Like I said, the only thing, and I ordered it knowing the weight because I obviously already have some, but the only thing that just does not excite me is the weight. So yeah, I mean, that's just so thick to freaking cut with a cutoff wheel. I just really hate to do it, but I might cut that to cut some of the weight off. And half of me thinks that one of these, like if I cut it right here, and you can order just one, but I really feel like one of these might be enough. I don't know. Your travel limiters do have all the weight. So when the front end comes up in the air, all the spring is always trying to force the wheel down. It's the weight of the motor that pushes down on it and holds that all together. So if the front of the car comes up, all of the pressure is on your limiter. So the mount that's on the control arm and the mount that's on the car is where all of the pressure is at that spring creates it. You know, instead of it transfers from the spring being compressed from the weight of the car to, if the front of the car wants to come up, now it's a different where the weight of the motor kind of goes away because the front end's coming up, and now all of the pressure is on the mount. So that's the reason why I didn't want to go aluminum on that. I wanted to make sure that I had something nice and solid and heavy duty. It was either that or weld it to the car, and I'm just not a big fan of welding it to the car. So Mike fixed our roll bar, anti-roll bar. So if you haven't checked out his video, go over to Blanton Dynamics YouTube channel, and I think he will be posting a video on how he done this, because I can go ahead and tell you that you think this is simple. I thought it was simple. I did it myself. I messed it up. Mike was like, oh, okay, that's no big deal. That's simple enough. Mike messed it up also. So even when you're confident as Mike is and you think something is simple, it's actually not. And Mike will go over that with you of the challenges of doing this JEGS kit, you know, what you'll run into. But he has come in here, it's hard to see, and he has sleeved it. So there's actually a sleeve through there. You can see a tack weld on the ends. When I take this apart, I have to show you, but he has actually sleeved. Let's try to get it where you can see it. You can kind of see the sleeve right there. So there's a sleeve through this also. So very solid unit now. You know, perfectly level. The arms are at perfectly the same height. So we're going to be getting that installed. And then he did the shock mount bolts for our travel limiters. So they're not shock mounts. Yes, the shock sensors bolts for our travel limiter. So this is a travel limiter bolt. This side is a shock sensor bolt. So we're going to be running the shock sensors off the travel limiter because obviously the travel limiter moves with the suspension and the shock sensor needs to be moved with the suspension. So we'll keep everything consolidated in one spot where it's nice and clean. So we'll be cutting these way down to the length we need. I just had Mike go ahead and weld them. We got our lines in, as you can see, for our coolant. So we got some Brown and Miller lines in for the water lines, the new ones. We are going to get these put in this morning also, and see if we can get the water pump back finalized again for the second time. And we have to make the long line that runs from there to there. So I'm gonna get started on this, and I did bring some of that trim paint home that we used on the Fox body. I have like a tiny little bit left, so I hope it's enough to rattle can out these clamps. So the seat clamps are going to be the last on the list. I don't even know if I'll do them this weekend, but we're definitely going to get the anti-roll bar in. We're not going to address the links yet, and we are going to get the travel limiters back in, shock sensors put on, and the lines back in. That's what we're about to do. So let me do a little bit of work, and I'll catch up with you. We also got in our super nice strange yoke for the transmission. This is for the Turbo 400, so there's your part number. This is a chromoly piece, super heavy duty, super strong. So this should be one of them deals, buy it once and never have to purchase that again. So we have strange yoke on the transmission side and strange yoke on the rear end. Next step is going to be to order the transmission, and then we also got in our bracket for our Holley Sniper throttle body. So I'm hoping this one works. It says it's for a 90 millimeter, which is what I have, but it didn't exactly say it was for the Coyote. So we're gonna get at it and try to make some grounds on some stuff this weekend. All right, so with cutting these and seeing how hard they are to cut, you can't even see they're smoking, man. I mean, these things are freaking, man, they're hot. They are tough to cut. That is some thick metal right there. Turn colors, like it's some thick metal. With seeing how tough these things are to cut and how strong they are, I'm thinking that we will, of course, we'll clean these up, that we'll probably just use the singles, you know, basically just one of these to mount our travel limiter to, versus it's about no good using gloves with holes in them, isn't it? I need to go to Advance and get me some freaking gloves. But we'll just use one for our travel limiter. I think we'll be okay. And if it breaks, the cool thing about that is now I have the doubles. So I mean, that's, you know, I was gonna order the singles. They do have the singles. A lot of the singles actually have a hole in them though, where you could thread a bolt into it. So that actually would have been decently helpful if I would have had you know, a bracket that made a bracket where it bolts on. But since I'm gonna just weld to it, I had ordered the 3, planning to cut the 2 off and just use the 2. But now I don't know, I don't think we need that weight or that strength out of a 2. So I think a single will be okay, perfectly fine. I don't know, I'm gonna keep thinking on it, let these cool. I have got another mess to clean up. I don't like out here in slippers and you can just hear all the crap on the floor. I mean, that was a brand new cutoff wheel in that bad boy. She was eating, son. All right, so not bad at all for a Harbor Freight welder in flip-flops. These are safety flip-flops though. They're leather, so they can't catch it. They don't really catch on fire. I'm not a welder. Mike's the welder, but I can handle bench welding where I have to weld on the bench, and something that's super thick that I can turn the heat up, I can handle it perfectly fine. I just don't handle delicate stuff. It looks like doo-doo, but it'll hold. So I did go ahead and clamp it to this tube, and when I went to clamp it, it actually, I had to tap it on there because I'm thinking that it kind of sucked together a little on just the cutting. So I knew when you throw a bunch of heat to it welding that it can definitely warp the metal. So we went ahead and clamped it on this 1 5/8 tube, which is the same as that one. And I'm just gonna take a break for a few and let this thing completely cool so that this metal keeps its shape while it's all bolted together. And then we will take these off and clamp them onto the car and put our travel limiters back on. All right, so we got our limiter mounted on now with our shock sensor. So there's the way our shock sensor's mounted up. Now we're gonna have to still clean all this stuff up with some paint, you know, but it goes up and it mounts to the top also, which is on a clamp. So I like this. This is nice and clean to me. You know, my wiring guy can put these wherever he wants and put a pigtail on them, but that's clean, simple, it's gonna work, it's gonna read everything, and I have no complaints. So yeah, that's a wrap on that side. We're gonna complete the other side and do the exact same thing on the other side. I need to zip tie that wire back up, and then move on probably to the radiator hoses, get them done, and maybe move on to the fire lines. All right, so we got this side put in also. We're gonna throw the wheel back on this one and move on to the next task. All right, so I feel like we've been here before, but now we have the coolant lines done again. So this one, 90s out the radiator, wraps around, 90s into the water pumps. Let me see if I can spin around, get a better shot of it from the bottom. So it's just lays right up against that smooth bar, nothing sharp to rub on it, nice and neat. Our water pump lines, they come over out of our ends. They wrap over just to make them sturdy where they're not flopping around. They are connected together with clamps to make sure that they stay in place. You know, it has plenty of clearance where it's not touching anything right there. It wraps all around that without touching anything, wraps around that without touching anything, and then wraps up here, another clamp, and then goes straight into the motor. And then we just, you know, loosely secured the upper radiator hose with the two water lines together, just so they're not flopping around, because they do run right here beside the Procharged belt. So I know if we ever throw the belt, hopefully they will hold up and not bust. But I do know that it's, you know, it's close, but everything is clear. These are Brown and Miller lines, so they are top quality stuff. I don't know how good they hold up against whipping with getting whipped with a Procharged belt, but at least they are name brand stuff now. So just wanted to update y'all on that. We finally have all the lines taken care of. Got the belts on there, Procharged belt and the alternator belt, so all that's on there now. You know, old lines we did in the last video, so we are starting to really wrap this thing up. All right, so we got our 90 that we needed. We're gonna put this on for our return, and then we can finally put all of this together. So we'll be able to put all of the back window back in and everything. So this one's gonna go on here like this, and this is gonna be our fuel return to this side. And then all we got to do is move our vent over there to that corner, and we are done, man. About to put this together, fix this back window. At some point we need to move in there and work them quarters, but quite frankly, I'm not feeling it right now. So I'm gonna button all this up. All right, so we have got the roll bar, or anti-roll bar, put back in this thing now. Everything looks good. It flows nice and even, you know, smooth. I've just got some zip ties over there just so that it's not hanging all the way down to the, you know, to the freaking ground. We are waiting for the tabs that we're going to go up here on this bar that we're going to weld on. So we're going to weld tabs on that bar and then go from here to here. Yeah, that's where we're at. So I'm happy with it. I think it's going to work good. The only thing I got to figure out is the angle. So the angle is back. You can see the shock is mounted where the anti-roll bar is going to be mounted, okay? So I was trying to figure out if I should just go like that, you know, where it's at now, and then when the rear end droops, you know, of course the bar, when the rear end droops, the bar will come up like that as the car separates, or if you should start like that at a 90, so that when it separates, then it's going more at like a 45. So that's the only thing. If y'all have any input on that, comment below. Should I set it up at a 90 so that under separation it's at a 45, or should I let it hang down low less than a 90, and then that way when it separates it's closer to a 90? That's the only thing that I kind of had question about. Besides that, we ran the overflow line. So this comes from the front, the coolant overflow. It comes over there, goes up into the trunk. I have to get into the trunk, I guess, tomorrow. It's already after 10 o'clock tonight, so I think I'm gonna call it. Looks like I haven't got a ton done. A little bit of cleaning up, odds and ends. Got that line hooked up over there. But tomorrow I will go open the trunk lid up and actually go inside the trunk and move the vent line for the fuel cell. And then also, let's see here, move the vent line for fuel cell, and then we'll go ahead and do the puke tank overflow while we're in there. I was going to put on the interior back in it, you know, the back, like I said, in the back window, but then I remembered that I have to pull the puke tank out to take it to the shop to have Mike weld on the puke tank. So I was like, well, might as well leave all that out so that we can unscrew the burn down tubes that are in the back of the puke tank right here to make it simple. So I'm gonna get that laid out tomorrow and then go from there. Something is telling me really hardcore not to go through this deck lid. So something just keeps telling me in the back of my head that that is for real hardcore race cars. This is still, I like to call it a street car. Roll up and down windows, radiator, you get the drift. So I think we're gonna just come out the U pattern, or the U it out of the top of it. So out of the puke tank, it will come up and U down probably, or it'll come out at a 90 and go straight down, whatever. I have a U piece of pipe that I need to cut up. But I think it's just gonna dive down through the floor. So I know a lot of y'all have said that you'd rather it come out through the deck lid so that, you know, if you have a failure, you can see it and it doesn't go all over the track. But even if it comes out the deck lid, I guess it's just gonna kind of go up in the air and all over the place, really fine, versus if it's in the floor, it's just gonna go straight out onto the track. Either way, it sucks. Well, first off, we hope that it don't go on the track. We hope that between the lines and the little bit that will stay in the engine and the puke tank, we hope that it can hold everything and that nothing goes on the track, because obviously that's the whole point of a puke tank, is that nothing goes on the track, and hopefully that vent is literally just for air to come out. But I guess if it pushed it enough, then, you know, you could get some out of it, but hopefully it would catch most of it in the puke tank. So that's on the agenda for tomorrow. Besides that, I need to, okay, I already have them done. I need to make the Zeus fasteners for down here, the little tabs. We'll get that buttoned up maybe tomorrow, and then we're getting closer. I need to put the strange piece in the transmission and confirm that measurement, make sure I'm still at 45 inches, center of the cap to center of the cap, and then put in the order for the drive shafts. And besides that, I gotta look at my list again and start just going down my list. Still gotta do something with the interior quarters, but I gotta look at the list tonight. So that's where we're at. Like, comment, subscribe, and share, and I'll catch y'all on the next update. Thanks, y'all.